So our first clue was we got word that Grunkle had lost his sword in a game of knucklebones to Reddick.
What?
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this is a King's Crossing Under the Table. So, what is Under the Table? Under the Table is just like our behind the screen look, which I'm stealing that from Adis because I thought it was actually really cool. It's basically a behind the scenes look at what's going on with King's Crossing. So, this is a discussion between both parties about what's going on in the world. We can discuss anything that was missed. We can ask questions, clarifying things. We can discuss what worked, what didn't work, all of that sort. So that's what Under the Table is going forward. We're going to have multiple of these episodes. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down King's Crossing episodes 1 through 4. So at this point in time, you guys should have already watched episode 1 through 4. The players have obviously already played through 1 through 4. So we are meeting to discuss this. And what I have today is I have Mr. Pickles, who plays the character Grunkle, representing the first party. He plays alongside Fred, who plays Torvekik. And from the second party, I have Adis, who plays Adarag. And his cohort over there is Toughnuts, who plays Nimwort. Now, I just have a representative from both parties. Everyone from King's Crossing is invited to come, but they're not always available, so at least I have these two. They're also obviously members of Dicebound, so you guys are very familiar with them. Hopefully love them, and we'll have a great discussion today. So, episode 1 through 4, a lot has already happened.
Yes,
a lot has already
a lot
happened.
has happened.
I am going to preface this with there's most likely going to be some spoilers. And for viewers, there's obviously spoilers, so go watch the episodes before you watch this. For players, there's going to be probably some spoilers because Pickles doesn't know anything.
I don't know
about
anything.
What's going on. Yeah, he doesn't know anything. And Adis may know some things about Pickles. I feel like he probably does, but we haven't really gotten there in the session yet, but his character might have put some things together.
We're a bit more of an investigation crew on the second team.
Very much so. So we're gonna discuss this. So, let's go with episode 1 first. Let's take it in order. So, Pickles, you were involved in episode 1.
That is correct.
First thoughts. I guess I'll open it up.
I mean, I'm glad to be back in King's Crossing. Even under terrible circumstances, I was expecting to come back to town and maybe be a hero, but I came back to town and I was a zero, I guess. Yeah, waking up in a prison cart was a very intriguing way to start because
Adis didn't know that.
because I've said many times, like, about games, I hate it when you start and it's like you're worthless scums, you're a slave or a prisoner. But we're not starting King's Crossing that way. This is the second season, so I've already had some time to actually explore and be assured that the world is actually nice, sort of, except for the mud. But yeah, so it was interesting, and I found it fascinating how little the guards were interested in actually guarding us, because I just started eating my chains. Like, they chained me up and I just started eating them.
You did.
And they're like, oh, okay.
It's true.
And I'm really curious
I was actually
why.
going to ask you about that the neutrality of the guards. Did that come across? You were able to kind of realize there was a lot of complaining about why are we here? What are you going to do to us? Like, why are we the criminals? And they were just like, we're getting paid. We're paid to do our job. We're just doing our job. They were very neutral in their opinion and perspective on things.
Yeah, no, that definitely came across as, like, I felt at a certain point, I felt like I could almost ingratiate myself to them and prove that I'm a good ogre and that I'm not a killer and I would never hurt a fly, like the ending of Psycho. Actually, pretty much exactly like the ending of Psycho, since Grunkle did hurt a fly, and that's why he was in that cart.
It's very true. Well, there was a point where you even mentioned now you're like, I ate my shackles, and they didn't have a problem with you being unshackled. They had a problem with you breaking their chains that they paid money for. They're like, hey, we had to buy those.
I asked them for food. They could have given me food, and I wouldn't have eaten the shackles.
Do you remember what was said about that? Rations and food has become very scarce in the freelands, and so you'll get food. They'll do their best to make a good meal as soon as they get to the next campground. They don't have a lot of food to just provide.
So I did what I had to do to survive.
Which is true. Yeah, you role played it and it worked out perfectly. It was just interesting that like you broke free and they weren't like, "Oh God, the ogre's loose." It was just kind of like, "Hey, man."
I mean, they didn't really seem to believe that I would even run away. Was that in the third episode where they let me out?
In episode at the end of episode 2, the frozen river. Episode 1. The end of episode 1, the frozen river did occur. Episode 3 was the fight.
Gotcha. Yeah, like we sank through the ice, and I'm like, I could help lift it, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, that seems like a good idea, prisoner ogre. We'll let you out, and we'll let you open it or lift it up. And I was like, yeah, they're giving me opportunities to prove my worth and also prove that I'm not a threat. And
they've also hung out with you before.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just a random criminal.
Yeah, that is true. And I was getting so many crit rolls during that session. Like,
you did have some crazy rolls.
I think I said the phrase "God loves me" multiple times.
I think you said like it's "You're the Grunkle." "You're the Grunkle" was definitely a quote. There was a serious crit fail there as well.
I fell into the ice, right, with that failure.
Yeah.
But that's not a problem.
What?
I was told that the dwarf felt a lot of cold, and when I came out, I just felt fine.
Oh, weird. Grunkle didn't feel any environmental effects when he went into the freezing cold water?
Well, when you're an ogre, you got a lot of blubber, so...
Is there something that happened to Grunkle recently that might have changed his internal DNA being?
Yeah, he got arrested.
Okay.
No,
I killed an
elder god.
Yeah, I just killed him and absorbed his essence, so it's probably me getting arrested that made me different.
yeah, that's got to be it. Okay, so Grunkle got arrested, and Grunkle has been on a journey, as you've heard, Adis. Now, there are things that you may have heard during his speech that gave you some ideas about what's going on. So in episode 2, Adarag and Nimwort woke up and basically got tasked with an investigation.
Yep. So we rolled off, rolling up and waking up after a night of drinking, after coming back to much celebration in the town.
Same as Pickles. Crazy.
Yeah, but I got arrested.
Again.
Yeah,
again.
Technically the second time.
But yeah, we were tasked with going and finding out there was some black smoke to the south of town that was of particular interest.
Yeah, they got tasked with, hey, Grunkle and Torvekik have gone missing. And they're like, but there's also black smoke over there. So it's like, go find Grunkle and Torvekik, or go look at the old campfire. And they're like, I'm gonna go
campfire.
To be fair, you guys actually didn't go investigate that black smoke until episode 4.
Yes, we did. So at first, we needed some more investigation information. So where do you go for your investigation information? The antiquarian.
You guys went to the bar first.
That's
we woke
also
up
a
at the
good
bar.
Location.
Yeah. You guys woke up at the bar. You actually had your first encounter or real encounter with Cyrus.
Yeah. The first long-term talk with Cyrus. That was a big one. Adarag had definitely kept on putting off going and meeting his mentor.
It's very true. It was a interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think you got out of it what you wanted to.
I don't think I did, but I think that was purposeful in the fact that Adarag tries to strike a deal with somebody who'd already agreed to help him, but he also lets slip that that the deal that they originally had was probably null and void. So, uh,
For anyone wondering, Cyrus was commissioned to come up and be a mentor for a new apprentice. The new apprentice was whoever won the Spring Equinox Festival games. Adarag had won. The person who commissioned this prize was Eldar Elaine, the guy Adarag and Nimwart punched in the face and took captive. So when Cyrus asked him, he goes, so the guy who was paying me is in jail.
what's the deal now? And Adarag
Yeah,
was just
so-
like, well, let's make a new deal. And
From your conversation with Cyrus, did you get the idea that he may know more than he was letting on?
I think he did. And I think what proved that was when we found him in the antiquarian later on. I think the fact that he has some information about these mystical ashen trees that not a whole lot of people have worked with or talked about in the town, other than saying, hey, don't go near the ashen trees.
If you remember specifically, he said, hey, I've heard things about these ashen trees. What do you know about them?
Mhm.
And you came up with a little bit of information. You held back a lot. And then Nimwart walked up, talked to him as well. And when he asked for directions to the tree, you said, only if you agree to continue to be my mentor. That'll be like payment.
Mhm.
He said, I'll find my own way. So he left. And when you talked to him later, he said, I've got it. I got directions. Someone gave me directions, right?
Mhm.
So that's interesting.
So that's interesting. So now I've
Meanwhile, you guys are investigating the disappearance, of
yes,
your comrades.
the disappearance of
Yeah.
a Grunkle and Torveka.
What did you guys learn? What started? You guys got to Hobbs Lodge and you found your first clue.
Yes.
Do you
So
remember what that was?
so our first clue was we got word that Grunkle had lost his sword in a game of knucklebones to Reddick.
What?
Yeah, so you learned that Grunkle had bet his sword
He bet
in a
his
game
sword.
of dice and lost.
Grunkle would never. He loves that sword.
Grunkle would.
Drunkle would.
Drunkle would.
My beloved
Okay,
sword.
and then the sword was immediately.
Pond.
Yep.
So for lack of a better term, Gregory.
No, that was a great word choice.
Yeah. Gregory turned in Grunkle's sword to the antiquarian in order to receive a sleeping potion in picture format from Valerie's.
A recipe. For one.
Sorry, recipe. Yes, sleeping potion recipe.
Yep.
Um,
That was not written out. It had to be drawn
drawn
out.
in picture format.
Yep. And that's immediately where your guys' investigation stop. And no, it's
Nope.
not.
Yeah.
Because Nimwart, your comrade, had found that he had been drunkenly doing things as well.
Yes, he did. So
He had installed. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So he had installed a new add-on to his armor. He added some insulated plating to his armor, which helped
Yeah.
him with later on in the
Damage
investigation.
reduction and yeah. So Nimwart has a suit of power armor that is still functional and has been worked on to where he can use it just regularly now. So Nimwart, obviously being scared of the world, decided to just walk around everywhere in his power armor.
Yes, he did.
Upon reaching the antiquarian, where you learned that Grunkle's sword had been pawned there, Zabani spoke up and said, "Oh, you're going to get Grunkle and Nimwart, huh? Or Grunkle and Torvekik, huh? Take the sword, but bring me back any news when you come back."
So
You have my
we-
sword?
We
It took
strapped your
three
sword.
people. It took 3 people, but Grunkle's sword is strapped to the back of Nimwart's power armor now. They can't wield it.
Can't wield it at
but
all.
He can carry it.
Nimwart hates Grunkle.
Well, that's Dibs.
Dibs hates Grunkle too. Torvekik hates Grunkle.
Torvekik does hate Grunkle. Okay, so you guys got his sword, and I believe it was in episode 4 that you got to learn more about
yeah,
that,
we got
right?
to learn more in episode 4
Okay.
there, yeah.
I think episode 3 or 2 kind of ended right around that point.
Yeah, it
You
was.
guys had gotten your clues.
Yeah, Alexios made the poignant observation that a lot of our adventures end up with just walking around town.
It's very true. Every time he went on an adventure with Grunkle and Torvekik, and got an adventure, and then was pawned off to you guys, and you guys just went shopping, and he was like, "What the hell? Like, I'm here to get stories for adventures." You guys did take him on one adventure where you got Bjorn blown up, him almost blown up. So you tried to recruit Bjorn, and he was like, and showed just all his wounds from being exploded. It's like, yeah, I'm not going anytime soon. I gotta heal. Okay, so episode 2 wrapped up. Episode 3, we jump back over to Torvekik and Grunkle. You guys, basically, episode 3 kicked off with someone of importance perishing.
Are you talking about Wilfer?
Yeah. He's a player character. It's supposed to be a big deal.
I mean, well, yeah, he's the reason we're in jail. So,
It's
it's
true.
kind of a big deal. But yeah, he got shot in the head with an
Very
arrow,
true.
I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep. He was
okay.
shot in the head with an arrow.
And
Yeah.
then an onslaught.
Right after he gave you the forewarning, they're coming. And then he was shot and killed. Not by your captors. By the woods, an arrow came flying out, and at this point, the door is unleashed. And we're talking, give or take, 100 to 200 people came running out of these woods. Straight at this caravan that is moving across this frozen river. They came running out, bandits ready to attack. Grunkle, what did you notice about this attack?
I believe I had noticed.
Sorry, Pickles.
I believe what Grunkle noticed was that they were kind of like peasants. I remember them being very poorly armed. I think that it was implied they were like starving. So we're like, they're here to steal supplies, not necessarily to kill.
Mhm.
And I think Grunkle also thought, wow, that's a lot of meals throwing themselves at us.
This is also true. It was an absolute massacre as these disheveled and desperate peasants and beggars basically came running at you with their fists, broken metal, pitchforks, rocks, that were just ricocheting off your guys, and you were just snagging their weapons
That's right,
out of
the
their
pitchfork.
hands and shoving it through their bodies.
Yeah.
You guys massacred these bandits that ran at your so out of the 100 to 200 that probably ran at the caravan, by the end of episode 3 there's maybe 20 to 50 still standing ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are the
They
combat
didn't do
team
too
for
well.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're built for that.
So all that happened, and there was a turning point in this battle. A bunch of the peasants had been lined up next to a fallen log. You'd noticed these fallen logs along the road earlier, right? And a bunch of these peasants had lined up along this fallen log and were using it as cover and basically shooting arrows from the riverbank at the caravan, right?
Right.
And there was a turning point in this battle when what happened?
Spacing on this one.
Uh-oh.
I remember, I was just getting bloodlust and bashing people with pitchfork in my hands.
It was. I remember someone came up and Torvekik was like, "What are you doing?" And then just killed him. I was like, "Can't answer you, he's dead." So then his brother next to him is just like, "We just want the wagons."
Oh, man.
So you killed him too.
We saw something off in the woods behind that log, didn't we?
A large, like, jagged, crystalline gray hand had reached up over the log, just grabbed it in one, like, clawed it in one swoop, rolled it over all the archers.
That's right.
Killing all of them.
Yep, that's how it ended, too.
Yeah, well, almost.
Almost?
As out through the woods, you guys saw the creatures that all these 200 plus peasant people were running from.
Oh, that's
charging
right.
at you.
And we realized they were fleeing not to steal, or they weren't attacking to steal our supplies. They were trying to steal our ride.
Get away.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to run. And that alludes to Wilfer's final words of their coming before he died.
That's right.
So then we jump over to episode 4 where Nimwort and Adarag are at a campfire.
Yeah. What remains?
Did you guys
of
kill
the
a bunch
watch hut.
too?
No, but they found what Grunkle did.
Yeah, we found the remains of the watch hut, where there was still like embers and smoldering. A couple of flames were still going in the watch hut, down in the south side of town, southeast side of town, and that was where we found a Nimwort. Inside of the building found a piece of red cloth, very similar to the red cape that Grunkle is usually wearing. And then outside, Adarag found a door completely taken off of its hinges and put back in the opposite direction, by somebody.
Yeah, it was put back on backwards.
That sounds like Grunkle.
And large footprints outside.
Yep, heavily
Back to me,
armored
buddy.
footprints. So
But you guys found out they were heavily armored after.
as we were
Because
walking.
at first you're like, Grunkle was here. Grunkle busted this door off. Grunkle's dumb and put it on backwards.
And he started making his way this way.
And somehow this hut got burned down. So they're like, either Grunkle came here and burned down this hut, or Grunkle was attacking someone and the hut just blew up because Grunkle was attacking someone. That was where you guys had gotten to in your investigation.
Yes.
Until you started following the tracks.
Then we started following the trail over toward back towards the antiquarian, actually. And that's where we noticed that the footprints that we were seeing were heavily armored with a smaller set right next to them.
So you knew from that it was someone of Grunkle's size and strength, but it wasn't Grunkle.
But it wasn't Grunkle because he was armored. So
It was heavily armored feet.
Yep. So then
You would also noted, you know who the smaller pair of footprints belong to. Tough Nuts can't pronounce his name.
I thought that was the larger individual was noted to be Nithrondir.
No, Nialthrandir is the smaller.
Oh, Yalthrandir was a smaller set of footprints. Okay.
Yeah, he's a smaller guy. He's a normal human guy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Pickles, you know who Nialthrandir is.
One of the Lost Sons?
He was the one smacking his sword against the cage, telling you guys to fuck off.
Oh, yeah, I don't learn people's names when they say that kind of stuff.
So Mateo had mentioned to the guy who hired you to go find Grunkle and Torvekik. We haven't actually mentioned that.
Oh, yeah.
Who hired you to go find Grunkle and Torvekik?
Tony.
That name mean anything to you, Pickles?
It should. It's on the tip of my tongue. Tony! He's
You
the
named
guard
him.
that survived.
Yes.
That's right. We named him that.
Yep.
Well, heck yeah.
Tony is a very important character.
Good old T-Dog.
Tony
He's now known as...
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so Tony really cares about you guys. He was looking for where you guys were and asked us to go help with the investigation. And he was kind of giving us some of the details of things that he saw and kind of trying to help us along in the investigation. But he's very worried about you guys.
Tony.
Yeah, the last watchman of R1's Rest, Tony.
Classic Tony.
Which instead of encouraging the hunt to go find Torvekik and Grunkle, you guys wanted to convince him to do what?
Start an orphanage.
What the heck?
They want him to just become a dad instead.
Why?
Okay, so hear me out. We've got some orphan kids out there with
Do
Mateo and Isabella, and so they need direction.
Torvekik, I believe, let Isabella's dad get killed, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And Mateo's dad, Griff, got killed in the Battle of the Blights, holding back the dwellers that I believe Torvekik led to the door.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of started putting things together, and he needed a new home, so we were all like, well, why don't you take the kids under your wing, because raise them in an orphanage sort of setting, and you can also train them to be fighters, so you can have more watchmen.
What? It's
Oh,
just
they
two
had like
orphans. It's not
They
like
had like a 15-20 minute RP session with Tony trying to convince him to become a dad.
but it's just two orphans, and I'm pretty sure they could just go to the bar that no longer has occupancy and just call that their orphanage.
So you guys followed the footprints back up to the Antiquarian, and a couple of key things happened here. There was one big clue that was completely missed that I think I had to kind of hand you guys. Still missed.
Uh,
And then there was one event that happened.
yeah, I know the event that you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, there's technically two events that happened there. I think Adarag was the one to discover both of them.
Oh yeah, there were two events there.
Yep. So we'll get to the clue after. So
Anyways,
the first big event, I would believe, would be with the sword.
Yes. So, Nimwort took the sword down off of his back to do a further inspection of it, because we realized, oh, we hadn't really looked at this sword much yet. Took that down, and Adarag heard a voice coming from the sword. Specifically, one that asked, who was Adarag? Where were they? And then he just screamed at me.
Yeah, he does that. He doesn't like change or people who are alive.
Yeah.
Nimwort also heard him.
Yes, Nimwort did hear him.
Yeah.
He heard the tinks.
Yeah. Nimwort listened to the sword and heard tink, 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 tink.
Weird.
Adarag is well aware as he walked out and saw what was happening. Nimwort was jealous of Adarag being able to hear what was going on in the sword. So Nimwort's sitting there listening, and Alexios is on the side just throwing rocks at the sword, making tink, tink.
Damn it, Alexios.
And Nimword's like, I can hear it. It was hilarious. Great moment. Meanwhile, while Nimword's listening to the sword, Adarag went back inside the Antiquarian as all the trails of their clues had converged at the Antiquarian. Radic had won Grunkle's sword in a bet and said that it'll fetch a fine price next door. Sir Gregory, was the one who traded in the sword for a sleep aid tonic recipe. Nialthandir was seen leaving the Watchman's Hut area alongside a large set of armored footprints, and both sets led outside the Antiquarian. Didn't go inside, just led outside. So you've got 4 of the Lost Sons involved in this thing, or sorry, 3 of the Lost Sons plus an armored set of footprints that are large, involved in this thing, all kind of converging around the Antiquarian. So Adarag was like, I'm gonna pop back inside. So he popped back inside to the Antiquarian, and at this point, Cyrus had left to go on his quest. What did Adarag notice?
Adarag started to notice that everybody in the Antiquarian did not recognize who Sirius was. Adarag remembered him standing over by a bookshelf reading a book, and when he came in the first time. But then when asking Valerice, Bjorn, and I don't think he asked Zabani, but when he asked Valerice and Bjorn about where the man who was reading by the bookcase went, neither one of them knew who he was talking about. Which spiraled Adarag into a bit of a...
Yeah, Adarag's like, what? You also noticed something else about Bjorn?
Bjorn was very relaxed, very chilled out. And he had some...
And staring at a wall.
Yes, he was staring at a wall. He was totally zonked out.
Yeah. So you walked outside and you were like, I think my mentor's in my head. To which Nimwort and Alexius were both like, we know who Cyrus is.
Yeah. So something caused a bit of amnesia in the antiquarian just before or just after Cyrus left.
I bet.
So that's where we left off. That's episodes 1 through 4. That is what happened. A lot of stuff has happened. I have some questions about a couple of things, but before we get into that, I was curious if you guys had any questions.
So Mateo, though,
You guys have not spoken to Mateo yet.
yeah, Tony said that he likely is over either in the graveyard or at the lodge. And because we were already at the lodge, we kind of narrowed it down to just the graveyard, which was where we were going to go
Potentially, people move.
People move, yeah.
Yeah, Cyrus is one spot, and then we walk to another spot, and yeah.
Adarag just thinks it's all in his head.
Yeah, he's just poofing, appearing places. Yeah, people walk and people move, so he could be at the lodge, he could be at the graveyard, or he could be elsewhere, the bathing hole, or in the woods, or wherever.
But okay, so he was not the smaller individual that I had it flipped around. I thought Neothrondir was the larger individual and Mateo was the smaller one, but that's not what was happening there.
Neothrondir is a normal human-sized character.
Okay.
Pickles, do you know anyone who may fit the description of a large, grunkle-sized armored individual?
I mean, there's that half-orc, but I don't think they were that big.
There is no half-orc here.
There's the swamp dragon, but that might be too big.
He doesn't have armor.
I feel like I would have been very...
I asked you about this character yesterday, and you had no memory of them, even though they held Torvekik up in the air and helped save your life.
They might have said something rude. I don't remember people's names when they're rude to me.
They've never said anything.
Yeah, no, I have no idea.
Okay. I've described them. They've been with... I'll say this. They've been with the Lost Sons the entire time. I've described them multiple times.
That is true.
You've seen them tons of times.
The issue, though...
They're a very important character in the Lost Sons.
The issue is that there's
character. They're grunkle-sized and armored.
There's like 20 of them, and they're all like walking around being like, screw off. And so it's like... It is very difficult as a player to then articulate like the differences between them, because from what I can tell, there's a bunch of them. They're all armored and effective fighters. They don't really like Grunkle, and then there's Jess, who picks flowers and is sort of friendly to Grunkle. So a lot of them are just like, I don't know them well enough to differentiate them. You can say this one's Nathaniel and this one is Nearothandir, and I'll just be like, they're part of the Lost Sons. I don't know anything about them otherwise.
I remember everything.
Well, you're the one who
guys
wrote
hung
them.
out and drank and played games with Radek and Titus. Radek was the merchant or the quartermaster that gave you arrows. Titus watched you lift and fix their wagon at the crossroads when you were there. Captain Blackheart,
right there,
his outsider tent. What?
Right there, the guy who watched me repair the wagon wheel. It's like that's I struggle to remember people in that way. It's like, this is the guy who is watching me. Like, I need a few more interactions where it's like, I don't know.
He's the same guy who's driving your current wagon, who has been talking with you the entire time.
He's nice to me.
If that helps.
That does help, actually. Because that's also the thing. Is like, when there's so many guys in this unit, like, being like, this is the person who was there before, who is now this person. They are connected, so they're the same person. It's easy to get blurred and be like, these are 20 new soldiers each time.
Adis, you hung out with the Lost Sons a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have notes on who this might be?
Of course,
I was just looking through my notes to see if I did have anything on this individual. But from my notes, it doesn't look like we met anybody that was that large.
He has not left Captain Cassandra's side ever.
Okay. And in that case, he probably was not a part of... So that means he was not
a part of your work party.
Yep. So that's why.
Speaking of which, your work party. What was the payment for that work party?
Well, it was a cage that could hold a magical being, or the plans
Oh,
for a cage that could hold a magical being.
crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy.
There was one point where Grunkle, I think, got a crit success and observed his cage and was like, there's only one person he knows who could build a Grunkle-sized cage like this that was mobile and could hold him.
Nimwort.
Nimwort.
Well, Nimwort doesn't trust
Uh,
Grunkle, and so it's it's fair.
Yeah, I brought that up and he was like, they built a cage. Oh, no, what you said was, oh, good, they're building cages to protect us from the rock car invasion. You're like,
Damn it, Grunkle.
which, yeah, back in season 1, Nimwort and Adarag helped provide the workforce and the plans and the designs for a mobile caged wagon that was capable of being strong, like unbreakable, and have magical capabilities to where it couldn't be magically tampered with.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty
Which
cool.
Grunkle woke up in. Okay, so my question was NPC engagement. I felt like some NPCs had pretty good engagement. I feel like Cyrus, we had a really good time with him. I feel like Titus had a pretty good time with him. Some of them I feel like I didn't do a very good job. Alexios, you guys recruited him, you brought him with you. I would like to see the people that you actively choose to travel with you should be providing something.
Mhm.
And so I will let you guys know, I went through and detailed every single NPC in my game so far. Every single one of them. If they're recruited and travel with you, and like agree to travel with you, every single one has a unique passive bonus they will grant the party. It's not going to be anything crazy, but like having them might provide better meals, which are going to provide like warmth in cold weathers, or like a full belly and a peace of mind. So you the next time you take mental peril is one step less than it should have been, or something. You know, each one provides different passive bonuses. So there's that. But as far as the actual NPC engagement, like I was thinking about Alexios, so I was like, half the time I feel like we probably forgot he was there. And
Yeah, and I think
we need to do
that's
better about
it might just be because Nimwort and I haven't had that initial interaction of seeing like what he was good at, so we don't really know quite yet how to like fit him into the party.
the biggest thing about Alexios so far is that he knows what's going on.
Hmm.
Like he talks, like he's a very social character, and he kind of hangs out and everyone kind of talks to him. He's like the barkeep that everyone tells their problems to and talks to and and he just picks up things.
Mhm.
So he'll know kind of the happenings around town, kind of that kind of stuff. And then he's also obviously a bard, so he does stories, and I believe you guys told him to start singing a song and he was like, oh, okay. So apparently he might try and sing a song someday too. But anyways, yeah, NPC engagement, you guys feel like there was good NPC engagement, not so great NPC engagement. Pickles, your side, I feel like we had some good engagement.
Yeah.
It was also kind of a struggle because it was one-sided. Like one of you was engaging with NPCs, one of you was actively telling them to fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I just said a little bit ago, there are tons of Lost Sons, so it's hard to, like, learn all of them. But I did pick a few where it's like, I kind of like the two that are leading. The guy that was leading the vehicle and the lady next to him. I liked Jess, because she seemed favorable and picked flowers and gave them to Grunkle. So those are the ones that, like, I picked as, this is what Grunkle's going to focus on as a character to try and learn more about them, connect with those characters a bit more. So I felt that went well, but yeah, I think my dwarven comrade did not like being put in a box.
Yeah, I don't think he likes imprisonment. Speaking of which, if you guys, there is by the time this releases, there will already be a podcast out where we talk about what bringing your NPCs to life in your games is actually all about. This would be a great podcast for you to go listen to if you're interested in how I do it, how they do it, and our thoughts on all of it. Sorry, I punched my mic. Hopefully that didn't come through. But okay, so NPC engagement was one of mine. Adis, I'll let you say your thoughts. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for our group, we're always to the chagrin maybe of the storyteller. We do like to talk a lot with our NPCs. And I know that that's been something that our group has definitely had to work with. Is we like the RP side of it, and then Wrath's like, all right, we have a story that we're supposed to like get to this point.
You guys have been in town for 3 episodes. The mission hasn't been done. We gotta go.
Please get back on track. Yes.
Actually, before you continue, this episode 2 and episode 4, I think it was mainly episode 2. You guys kick off with an investigation around town to figure out what happened with Grunkle and Torvekik, and we got to the end of it, and Tough Nuts was like, "I'm trying to leave town, Wrath. I swear, I'm sorry." And I was like, "Where would you go? You don't know where they went yet. You can't just leave town." He was like, "Oh, well, I know you want us to like get out of town." I was like, "No, I wrote a mission. Like, I've learned how your group works, so I wrote a mission that works for your group." Yeah. I was like, "Hey, they like walking around town a lot over and over again. Let's do that."
Let's give him a minute.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was my thought. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, no. But I think, I do think that we've gotten better. I think we've picked up the pace quite a bit, and I know that you noted in the session that we were we were taking different routes than were expected or planned, but still making our way towards towards where you wanted the session to end. And I think we got to a good spot where we were starting to make our way towards the Lost Sons camp after we had gotten all of our kind of details behind us.
Basically, what had happened is you guys figured out that, hey, 3+1 members of the Lost Sons converged here. They're all entwined with the story somehow. Let's go ask them.
Let's go see what's going on.
Let's go to the beach and see what's going on.
Yep.
Where I had was the Lost Sons had worked really hard to get Grunkle's sword, traded it in for you go to the antiquarian, it's a lore and knowledge shop. Like, you trade for knowledge. Like, what did they trade a magical sword for that was so important that they needed it? A sleep aid tonic recipe that was drawn out, not written out. Why did they need that? And you guys didn't investigate that. You just said, we're just going to go to the Lost Sons camp, which makes sense. It works. What I had is, and the way I brought this up is, you guys had worked to get a tonic recipe at one point in time for depetrification of a statue. What did you do with that recipe once you had it?
We had to go to Bjorn with it.
You had to go to Bjorn. You needed an alchemist who could make it. Why did they need it drawn and not written?
Because
it's an alchemist that isn't literate.
Yep.
Do we know an alchemist that isn't literate? Maybe a bear.
Technically a healer.
So, no. So my thought, the clue trail would take you to Bjorn, which you were standing there, you just didn't bring it up with him. But like I said, regardless, you guys are just going a different route. You're going to the beach to address the Lost Sons. We all know the Lost Sons are involved somehow, so
yep,
it worked. Okay, you brought up a good point, pacing. I wanted to talk about pacing because I had an issue with this. And I will say this. Episode 2 and episode 4, I think the pacing is great. I think you guys got to have a great talks, great RP. You guys got clues. You moved around. I will say episode 4, I don't feel like we got as much done, but it might have just been because I think we might have been a shorter recording than the other.
And I think it also felt that way because we did loop back to the antiquarian after already being there. So it might have felt
felt more the same. Yeah. I feel like episode 4, we didn't get as much done, but we had 2 great episodes where we great pacing. I would say we got a lot of RP. You guys talked with a lot of different people. We got to revisit some of my favorite characters that I had a lot of fun. I got to pop out Bjorn's voice, which was awesome for me. I like that. I didn't get any compliments this time. I got compliments in season 1, so maybe I gotten worse as a DM. I'll have to work on that, but stoke my ego, players.
Come on, guys.
No, Pickles group. Pickles, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, and I'll make it short. I don't feel like the pacing was great. I feel like what we got done in episodes 1 and 3 should have been like maybe 4 episodes rather than 2. I feel like it got pushed fast, and I think that was my fault because I read the room as I'm not having fun, change it. and I was like, oh, we need to. There's a story. There's a I can't just let you out of prison. There's a point that you're in prison for, and the other group is investigating it. So I can't just be like, oh, never mind, you're not in prison. So I'm like, okay, let's move along so that maybe we get to something that you like. And I feel like that was detrimental to the game because, one, we need to enjoy the story and have fun playing it and everything, but then we've also got viewers who want to enjoy it and everything. And so if I start rapid, expediting the process, then they're like, whoa, slow down. Like, who's the guy in the back? Like, what was that character? They talked to him for like 2 seconds and then they just stopped talking to him, which I did notice happened a lot. You guys would start a conversation with someone and then just start talking to each other and never talk to them again. You like ask them, like, hey, Titus, what do you think of this? And then just move on and never talk to Titus. And I was like, okay.
Titus.
So I feel like that happened a lot in mainly episode 1. Episode 3 probably should have been 2 episodes as well. I feel like there could have been a lot more that we could have done with that fight rather than you guys just standing in one spot and spearing people in the stomach as they ran at you. Like, there could have been more tactics, more movement, more environmental factors. That many people in the frozen river could have been affecting that. Like, there could have been so much more we could have done with it, but in the short amount of time, I kind of rushed through it. How did you feel about your pacing? Really, to both of you.
I thought the pacing was as good as you could do given the circumstances. I mean, we were stuck in prison, and so there's not a whole lot we could do other than talk to each other, talk to others, eat our chains. And with my sidekick there not really enjoying any aspect of the prison, it was sort of, you didn't really have much of a choice but to like, okay, move on then. It's like if you're running like a segment of an adventure where you're walking along the road to grandma's house and everybody's like, okay, let's get to grandma's house. I don't really care what happens on the road. You kind of can't really just spend 8 sessions being like, okay, now you see this interesting looking creek that has water that flows purple. The players are like, no, I moved past. You don't have a choice. And even if that's the story, you did what you could with what your players were giving you. And as for questions that then don't really have the party continuing the conversation, I think that's a lot of just Grunkle is easily distractible, and he's got intelligence as like one of his lowest characteristics, of which shout out to the Swamp Dragon, where behind the scenes Wrath was like, would you like to have Grunkle be dumber, like borderline can't speak? Would that be fun? And I was like, nope, I don't think that would be fun. I think I would just hate that character. He's as dumb as he can be right now.
Pickles is referencing when he got his head bitten by a swamp dragon.
Yeah.
He could have undergone a dangerous surgery that would render him possibly less intelligent. He said no.
It was about 1/3 of my intelligence would be lost, and I don't have a lot to begin with. Possibly, yeah. It's like, oh, do you want to have a 20% chance of succeeding? I was like, no. That's gonna be a character killer. So, I mean, that is an issue. There is Grunkle isn't like a speaker, and he's not a terribly good ogre or berserker at as well. So, that's the explanation for why he was all over the place. And then, as for the tactics, we kind of just opened the door to our cell and went out, and we were getting overwhelmed. So, like, I think we were handling it as best as we could. Like, we couldn't really do tactics because we didn't have anything equipment wise. We just started blasting with our fists and picking stuff up and being like,
it was great. And
get away from me.
This out to them. Yeah, I'll shout this out to them. They would run a Punkle.
Yeah, Punkle.
Grunkle would punch them. They'd get hit by an ogre, drop their weapon. Torvekik would pick up the weapon and then kill the next guy with that guy's weapon. And they did it like 3 rounds in a row where they disarm, kill, disarm, kill. I was like, I mean, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm curious about the pacing from Adisa's side, just if he has any thoughts on it. But before we get to that, Grunkle, Pickles, I would love to hear your thoughts going forward on a very specific topic. And it's on when your co-star hates your character more than the situation they were in. Torvekik complained more about Grunkle and wanted to get away from Grunkle more than he wanted to get away from the imprisonment. He said, I'll be in prison, just get me away from this ogre. Multiple times. So what are your thoughts on how you would handle that going forward? I will say, your tactic in episodes 1 and maybe 3 of just having the best one-liners and greatest jokes of all time was hilarious. I'm just curious, it didn't seem to work for Torvekik, so I'm curious what your plan is going forward.
Yeah, being on fire with quips and jokes did not help my situation, because I guess maybe it made him think I wasn't taking it as seriously, when really I was just panicking, being like, I gotta spin this any way I can. But yeah, it's very difficult, I guess, as a player, because on the one hand, it can also feel like I don't like you as a player when your co-player is like that, and it's like, I mean, we should all be having fun. Hopefully, you're having fun, but I mean, yeah, he blames Grunkle for almost every problem they run into, whether it's Grunkle based or not, and so I think Grunkle has such a low self-esteem that he just kind of rolls with it. And
yeah,
Grunkle probably did this. I don't know. I mean, that's like
yeah, I think there was a point where you're like, oh, Grunkle probably told him what we did. Grunkle confessed. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you just kind of have to roll with it. And I guess there's any point in the story he could just be like, I'm done with Grunkle, I leave, and that would be that. But he chooses to stay
Obviously,
for some reason.
We're gonna try and avoid that. So yeah, going forward, any tactic from you or anything you would like to see from the DM?
I honestly don't think there's anything really we could do. I don't think Grunkle's that distasteful of a character. He's a little threatening, a little ominous with his food obsessions, but he's overall not like done anything egregiously evil towards players. He hasn't done anything like bad at all, really, besides that one time. But that wasn't towards players.
You guys dragged Wilfer's catatonic body around
to save him.
Dropping him off a cart.
Oh, well, that wasn't to save him.
Okay, so that's thoughts on that. Any last closing thoughts on pacing for Middies?
Honestly, I think our pacing was pretty good. Like I said, I think it has gotten faster, and even I'm starting to notice that we have gotten much better than we used to be. Trying to kind of go from point to point to point and try to keep our interactions kind of short, sweet, to the point. But every now and then you can talk about an orphanage or something like that.
For 20 minutes.
Well, my thoughts on that is like, if you guys are immersing yourself in the world. If you guys want to spend 20 minutes in this one location, you want to spend a whole episode just chit-chatting with one of the NPCs and like maybe coming up with that idea like, oh man, when we're done adventuring, we should start a business. Like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. Like, you guys spend a whole session RPing that. Amazing. Absolutely fine by me.
Yep.
The only issue, and I realized this when I was kind of editing and when I was working on things, planning sessions, the only issue is I have 2 groups, and I think it's a huge blessing to you guys, but it's also a detriment to you guys.
Yep.
Because I have to keep the pacing equal.
Yep.
So if this group is moving along like, hey, it's been 3 days, I need you to move along 3 days. And if you spend the whole session in one location talking to one NPC, I can't just say 3 days has passed. You know, it's like, I need you guys to do something. So
it took a really long time to draft up that contract.
Right, yeah. From the DM side, I think it's a detriment to you guys as much as it is a blessing. I think it's a blessing because like your group is able to figure out things and help out his group just as much the vice versa. I mean, Battle of the Blights was a great example of that. That's kind of my issue. I would love you guys to just be able to have all the time in the world to do whatever, but it's also a matter of I got to keep, you know, so if you guys are spending a ton of time just doing this one thing, like on, you know, you spend 14 episodes on one day, they also have to spend 14 episodes on one day. And I just talked about the pacing's off where, hey, I need this whole trip to be done like in this episode. And I'm like, that's like a 7-day trip. Like, I need you guys to get through 7 days of content now.
Yeah.
So that's just on my side. That's me talking as the DM, something that I have to juggle and figure out. So that's my thoughts on pacing. And
Yeah, no, I was just about to say, like, yeah, that's the kind of the crux that, like, as I was saying it, as the words were coming out of my mouth, the crux of, like, yeah, this also with two teams in tandem makes it very difficult to do those sorts of things.
I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love having two groups. I think it's awesome. I think I can create some really cool stories where it's like the dynamic between the two, and like they learn part of it, you learn part of it, and then by episode 40, it's like, oh shit. Like, I think it's really cool, but yeah, that's the problem. I don't want you guys to feel bad that you're like, yeah, we spent 20 minutes chit chatting with this dude, or oh man, we spent 3 episodes walking around town. You shouldn't feel bad about that. Yep. The only issue is, okay, now do I slow them down or do I speed you up, or yeah, But anyways, that's my questions. That's my thoughts on that. Do you guys have any closing thoughts or questions before we wrap up this?
Let's cross some kings.
Yeah, we haven't figured out what the title of this campaign is all about.
I
think
kings.
Someone asked me that in season 1. They were like, this campaign's called King's Crossing, but there's no kings at all, and they're not crossing anything.
Yeah, we've only found one crossing.
Yeah, there's been one crossing, and there weren't any kings there. There's the Lost Sons, and some freemen that you ate. Yeah. So we haven't figured that part out yet. Huh. It's almost like I have 4 seasons of this plan, but shh, don't tell anyone. I will leave you guys with this as we wrap up this Under the Table. Thank you to all our viewers for watching this. Hopefully you guys are enjoying. Huge shout out to Patreon, because if you're watching this, I think this is only available on Patreon. So if you're watching this, that means you're a patron and you're amazing, and we appreciate that about you. Yeah, I'm going to leave you guys with this, a little insider tidbit knowledge. If you're watching this, come episode 5, a new player has entered the game. We have a new party member will be joining the Sunday group, that doesn't mean anything to the viewers. A new party member will be joining Grunkle and Torvekik on their journeys. It's not Wilfer. We haven't seen a return of Wilfer just yet. Also, Wilfer's dead, so could he ever return?
Blood magic, yeah.
I was wondering if anyone would remember.
Oh, he's dead. Such a big deal.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Anyways, that's it from us. Huge shout out to my co-stars here at Dicebound, and huge thanks to all our patrons. You guys are amazing. Thank you, and we will see you next time.